Alright, so the first few decks that I think I'm going to talk about are kind of my cozy, all-purpose type decks. First of all, Heartwood. So this one's fairly new for me, for everyone, I guess, because it only came out like and started arriving everywhere a few weeks ago. So the thing with Heartwood is I thought it was going to be the super gentlest of decks, and it's kind of not in some way, but it delivers it in a very gentle tone, even if the message is cutting to the truth, which is sort of how it's been for me so far. You're gonna hear Echo going a little wiggy in the background. It's the time of night, Aries full moon. She's in Aries. She's in Banshee mode. But as far as an autumn deck, I mean, does it get more perfect than this? I haven't worked with it a ton, but I have done sort of mostly lighter readings with it, and I would say with the storybook nature of it, I find it really beautiful for a narrative reading. And it just feels like the kind of artwork that like my childhood story books, at least ones I really liked, had. I like this Eight of Swords a lot. But the artwork is so gorgeous. It's very fall vibes. It's got a darker mood even throughout the cards that aren't inherently fall. But there's a lot of like autumn leaves in it and different cards. And it's just a really beautiful deck. And it's moody, but it's also happy. Like it does it all really well and has such an interesting presentation. Like, look at this Two of Swords. Like, it's very unique, and I find Oak, Ash, and Thorn is a little bit more closely in line with RWS, whereas this one really takes creative twists and turns with how scenes and archetypes are represented. And so I find it to be a lot deeper than just like a standard kind of what you would think of with a comfort deck, I guess. Even though the tone of it, because of the storybook artwork, feels more gentle. She's doing cartwheels over there. This cat's gonna have no chill under this moon. Yeah, okay. I swear, she's not lately been so wiggy at night, but with this Aries moon, she's really... It's just funny. Because she is an Aries. But I'll show you real quick how like cards look spread out a little bit, because I always like to look at that. But it just creates such a beautiful layout. So I love this deck. It's a very chunky deck, you know, it's thick, but it shuffles well. At least the way I shuffle, it works well and I enjoy it. So that is Heartwood. Beautiful, glowy lights and dark little corners of nature taking over. So I would love to get to know this deck more, because like I said, I've not worked with it a ton. I've just done kind of less serious readings here and there, I would say. And a few pulls for advice. It did give me really great advice at one point when I was asking about something that was very difficult. So I wanted a deck that was more gentle. But it gave really good advice for that situation. So I love it for that. So the second deck, in this kind of cozy category, I would not say I'd only use in autumn or anything. And maybe same for Heartwood, although that gives me totally autumn vibes, so. But it does fit autumn really well, and I got it in autumn, and so I feel more pulled to it, I think, in autumn, and that is Tarot of the Witch's Garden. I really love this deck as a again, it has sort of a storybook vibe in a way with the style of art and illustration. But it's not quite an RWS clone. It does its own thing, but it stays really close to RWS. So if I want to do a larger spread and I don't want to use a deck that's got a lot of meandering I have to do within the artwork, or I want something that reads like a straightforward RWS, this deck is one I really like to turn to, especially a larger spread where I wouldn't so much use this as a daily pull. I did when I first got it for a while, and that was my connection I had to it, but then now it's pretty much more for like those bigger spreads where I don't want to use a deck that kind of is so far into its own little world, and I just want straight up RWS type vibes, I guess is what I'm saying. But in the Tarot of the Witch's Garden universe, which I love, like I love this Eight of Pentacles and the mastery of work, and then also this nod to being able to pass on that mastery and skill. And it's like they're the pages in the beginning sense of this. And she shows up, I think, in the Hierophant card as well. So she's like the teacher, and she's gotten this good because she has practiced and put in the work. So I don't know, I love that. I love the court cards are very elemental. This deck in general is very elemental, where the suits really feel and have this consistent vibe of their element, and then the court cards, you know, like this is the Knight and the Page, are like super enveloped in their element. Pentacles, same thing. So I love that about it, that this is a very elemental deck. It has that witchy feel to it, but it's also a pretty gentle reader, but very clear. So that's Tarot of the Witch's Garden. This one's kind of staying out. I have some larger spreads I might work with. The Queen of Wands from this deck I have kept on my altar for a long time, and I only pull it down when I want to do a spread with this one, because I just love that Queen of Wands. But yeah, I mean, look, it definitely has cards in it that really feel autumn, but it also has cards in it that, you know, really feel spring or summer, like flush with nature blooming. So it's got everything. It could be totally an all season type deck. I think mostly from the connection of getting to know it last autumn, it's my autumn deck. And I have this beautiful crystal that I pair with it. I don't know if you're going to be able to see. It's a golden rutile quartz. I got it at a gem show. Gosh, back when I was going to gem shows. And I really had no reason to buy it because I was there to buy stones to set in jewelry. And while you could figure a way to set this in jewelry or drill it, which would horrify me, I wanted it as a little crystal piece. And I wasn't even at that point in time intentionally setting up altars or anything. But I've always been a rock girl. So if it's not crystals, it's rocks at the beach, it's you name it. But that's Tarot of the Witch's Garden. That's my other sort of cozy go-to pick. And then the next one is new to me. Of course, it was the time of year where I was kind of itching for another kind of dark half of the year deck, spooky season deck maybe. So Tarot of Antique Anatomy, while I had kind of resisted going for this for a while, just was like calling out to me. So I got it, and I really love it as like I keep it on my desk type of deck. And I do it for readings. First of all, for others, this one I would enjoy reading with, I think. But then also larger spreads and things where I want a really clear type of a message. I find this to be very clear. I've also used it to do divination or spreads before spell work, and I love it for that. That's another use of this one. I don't know if I'll use it as a daily draw at some point. I probably should to get to know it, but I think the place it'll end up taking in my collection is going to be more of like a deck you reach for when you just don't want to have to dive too deep into something complicated. It's just kind of straightforward. I also really like the book. Let me grab that. I think the book is great, and I haven't done a full read through of it, and I haven't read through the beginning stuff, which also looks really interesting and probably just end up making me like this book even more. But when it comes to the cards and the descriptions of them, I've really been enjoying that. I love the way that they did the cards in the book. That's really fun. And then the minors are more like this per page. You can pause and peruse if you want to get a feel for how the guidebook talks about the cards. But of course, you know, it's kind of a Pippish deck. You don't have to go off of what the guidebook is saying if the way a card comes up is pulling you in a different way. But I just do really like the book, and that's always nice. I always like to see if in the book of a deck I'm using, if there's like a little phrase or sentence that's just the perfect thing for that moment and that draw and that inquiry. I have noticed, and I haven't had this long, I have noticed that there's like a little wearing on the edges already, which, because this deck has that kind of antiqued vibe, I don't mind it. But I am noticing that it's wearing a little quickly, but that's okay in this particular circumstance, because it kind of makes it look cooler to also be a little worn in. So Antique Anatomy, that one's staying out. It's definitely been sticking around on my desk for the last few weeks. The next deck I pulled out, I'm not sure that I'm going to end up working with. It's one that I would like to get to know better at some point, but I don't know, given that I have a whole section of decks that are decks I really want to get to know better this season, and that's 4 maybe. Yeah, 4 decks. That's already kind of a lot if I'm going to really spend some time with each one of them. And we'll see what happens. I'm going to play it as it plays out and not force it. But the Hayworth Tarot is super cool. So, and it's kind of perfect for this time of year because it's a bit uncanny, I would say. It's a bit disturbing at times, a little alarming, a little creepy crawly. And the other thing I really like with this deck, if I could find one of them. Oh, where are you? The knights all have this thing going on where they're in some way spilling their guts. And I kind of love that. I love the gutsiness of all 4 of the knights and how that's carried through thematically in the deck. Of course, I'm either skipping the knights because I'm not fully paying attention, or they're hiding. But okay, here's 2. Knight of Swords, Knight of Wands. You can see what I mean. I like the gutsiness. I like that, how that fits with the knights so well. And I find it kind of funny. It's like as kind of creepy in a sense this deck can be. That's really funny. Like, there's just things about it that are funny in an uncanny way. Uncannily humorous. Kind of disturbing deck. The stars, just like shoving stars into their mouth. Like, that's just hilarious to me. So it's kind of a creepy, spooky deck. And I would like to get to know it better, but I don't know that I'm feeling the call to do that this time around. I don't know what place this deck is going to take in my collection. I've not listened to the podcast that I guess this deck was inspired from. I don't know that whole story. If someone does and it's like super worth listening to get to know the deck, let me know. I think I started to listen to it and I just wasn't the kind of thing that I've ever been into before, so I kind of didn't hook in with it. But maybe I just need to give it more time. I didn't even listen to a full episode or whatnot. Shuffles nicely. It was a very inexpensive deck, which is nice. Came with the black bag that it was in. It's not, you know, the nicest cardstock, in a sense, but it's also pretty good cardstock for what it is. It might end up with a little bit of a bow, but nothing too severe, I don't think. Oh gosh, getting it back in the bag is a whole mess. Hold on. Yeah, so that's Hayworth Tarot. Wanted to mention it, probably not working with it, but I wanted to say hello to it in some way in my collection. The next few decks are going to be the ones that I really want to work with more in a more dedicated capacity because I want to build a relationship with them. I'll start with the one that I've already worked with to some extent, and that's the Black Tarot. And of course, if you've seen this one before, it's very much up the alley of autumn eerie type decks. And I think I like eerie decks this time of year specifically more than, say, really on theme Halloween decks. I'm just noticing at least my picks this time around. The backs are really gorgeous. The edges are this beautiful black. I did at one point get a card stuck in my scanner back when that was my preferred method, or my attempted method, to try and scan spreads to print cards for my journal. I don't do it that way now. I just use my camera and Canva. But I did squish a card. Yeah, you can't really... Oh, you can't see it because I have the deck upside down. I can see it right there, and it's the Ten of Wands. I need to try getting a black that I can edge it so that I don't see the little revelation of cardstock that gives it away. But when I'm shuffling, I end up shuffling overhand, so it doesn't really pose a problem where I'm like constantly aware of where the Ten of Wands is. It's just if I went to go look, I could find it. Shuffles beautifully. It's a mass market price deck, but the deck itself is indie quality, but it comes in a tuck box. And it is a really unique, otherworldly, liminal, makes me think of white noise kind of deck. I feel like at first glance, especially like when I've showed this to people who have never seen a deck, this kind of representation of cards, the first reaction is that it's like creepy or going to be uncomfortable, but when I've used it, I've not found that at all. I find it kind of that comforting white noise, liminal space. I think I was watching someone's video at one time and they mentioned, I can't remember who it was, but they mentioned it feels like incense smoke kind of a deck. And yeah, that's definitely the kind of vibe I get too. I like this Six of Spheres, which is Pentacles. But there's a lot of cards I really love in this deck. Here's our Ten of Wands. And look at that, how small and walking through the dark with like a spotlight on them, carrying, I don't know if you can even see so well, but they have like a ton of bags on their back that far exceeds their size and proportion. It's just carrying a huge load. I just think it's a really cool representation of cards. It does its own thing entirely. I have this artist's other deck. I wouldn't say it's particular. It's also eerie, but it's not like autumn spooky eerie. It's a little difficult to read with this one at night by candlelight, I will say that. But that's kind of the fun of it, is making out what stands out in this dark place. And if I could find... This deck also has one of my favorite, all-time favorite, Queen of Wands. And of course, I don't know where she is. Okay. That is just one of the coolest. I mean, that's just infernal. She is fire. I love that so much. And Queen of Wands is the archetype I've probably worked with the most in the past many, many months. Like, look at this Two of Swords. such a cool deck. Hermit. So I want to work with this one more because I haven't done like a daily practice, and like while I'm familiar with it and I feel like I know its vibe, I don't know it deeply, and I would like to. So that's why I have it out. We'll see. When it comes to the decks that I want to get to know better and work with, I'm kind of just keeping them out versus put away in the cabinet, so that when they give me a little nudge that tonight's the night, that I have a plan. You know, I have it right there in front of me. Now, the guidebook is pretty small and straightforward, but I still really like it. I like that there's not an over explanation of the cards or the meanings for this particular deck, since it is so unique. I kind of like the experience of feeling into these without there being a necessary predetermined type of thing in the guidebook. And of course, you can always discard or put aside a guidebook and what it's saying, and you can always, and maybe should always, lean into where your intuition is going first. But I like that, especially in the minors, it's so open because it is a fairly small portion. The majors, you do get a little bit more. And I like that even though it's a small guidebook, it gets into symbolism, or it's always called symbolism, but it's like the artist description or intention, or so it like gives me just exactly what I want. And it also gives me some things to read into if there's a sentence or a word or a phrase that sticks out to me where I'm like, yeah, that was what you're telling me, I get it now. So that is the Black Tarot. The next deck that I know I'm going to work with, but haven't yet, is Tarot of Persephone's Garden, the Chthonian edition. Okay, I wasn't going to get it. I didn't get the original, but then I got Tarot of the Huntress, and I was like, well, I can't remember if it was that I felt called to Persephone first, and I was like, okay, I'm going to jump on this, because it might have been coming up in some of the books I'm reading, or if I got it first and then that happened, I'm not sure. But I felt at some point, whether it was before or after, a direct pull from Persephone, but not yet, is sort of the message I got. So I was like, okay, I'm just gonna get the deck. And I can't remember if I got both of them at the same time. Tarot of the Huntress and this one? I think so. I got them both at the same time. I was like, let me just get both of them. But I've definitely gotten the message that it's like, not yet, but soon. But I don't know. I don't know if anyone can relate to that when it comes to working with archetypes, goddesses, however you view it. So this is still in order, because like I said, keep getting the not yet. But the time's coming soon. I can feel that, and I'm looking forward to working with this and seeing how this works out, because Tarot of the Huntress, which I'm going to be mentioning in a bit, is like top tier favorite deck. Don't want to go anywhere without it type thing. And this one, and I mean, Artemis has been an energy I've been working with for years in one way or another. So Persephone's new for me, and it definitely feels different, but I'm intrigued and curious to know what it is I am to learn through her and her stories and the overall archetype, everything. So this is going to be really fun to dive into. I've been looking forward to it. This is one that I know for sure I'm going to dive into and explore. I don't know with certainty what I'm going to pair it with yet, if anything. I'd love to know, those of you that have this or the original edition, what you enjoy pairing it with, because the oracles I pair with Tarot of the Huntress feel very Tarot of the Huntress. Maybe the Obsidian Oracle would work with this, but I'm not sure if it's the right vibe. Maybe. I'll have to see. But yeah, it's gorgeous found art deck by Kara Smalls here on YouTube. She did an amazing job picking images that fit the cards. Like, I love this Seven of Swords. Look at this. That's so great. Nine of Swords. Three of Coins. I don't know. I'm really excited about this one. I think the last I saw, there were some copies of this edition left. I'm going to try to remember to link everything down below. And yeah, she also makes candles and scents, which I have yet to try, but I look forward to when I'm able to and do. Oh, one more thing I wanted to mention. I'm really big on, especially with particular decks that have particular energies, finding ambient playlists that really fit the vibe and get me into that headspace. I do that wherever and whenever possible, and mostly for the unique decks, or that are like very specific decks. My general decks, I have like a whole playlist of general ambient music I like. But I found a playlist or ambient creation, because it's not a mix, it's an original creation that someone created around Persephone. I'm gonna link it below because it just, it's so perfect. I don't know, it feels perfect to me. I'd love to know from people who have like worked with Persephone more what they think of it, but it just feels perfect. And I'm so looking forward to putting on that playlist and having a little session and getting into this. I've listened to the music at times while like reading about Persephone and researching stuff, and it's just, I don't know, perfect vibes. I'm really glad that someone created that. And yeah. The next deck I really want to get into and build more of a relationship with, figure out more, is the Nameless One Tarot. I've had this for a hot minute. It's been hanging out on my altar for a long time. I've done some pulls from it to get to know it. I've shuffled through it. I've laid out cards because this is a deck that does not have titles. What am I doing here? I'm going to put the Oracle and the book over here because it comes with a whole bunch of Oracle cards. The backs have a sigil, and this is probably the witchiest deck I have. I have the giant book that you can get in companion with this deck, and it is giant, so I'm not going to bring it over here because I can't coordinate this whole situation here to accommodate that at this time. But it does come with its own guidebook that just, gets into the meanings. But the big book goes real deep into the symbolism of what's in the card, even the colors, correspondences, incantations. It goes into so much, and in general, outside of just the card meanings, it has a huge amount of information about witchy stuff, about sigils, about correspondences with plants, colors, candles, all kinds of stuff. It's a huge resource book, and it's awesome. But I think part of this delay with me and this deck, other than I needed, I think, more time to get more comfortable with tarot, is that I know when I go to pull from this deck, it's going to be a deeper thing, and I'm going to want to dive into the book and really lean into that, and that's going to probably not be something I can do every single day and be in my daily rotation, but I do want to work this in somehow, maybe on a weekly basis, to start working with it and getting to know what work to do together. Actually, I don't think, if I did a deck interview spread, I don't think I did with this, so I might do that and let that be my starting point. But if you haven't seen this deck before, each card has a sigil and then the beautiful artwork, and it doesn't have titles or anything like that. I generally don't have a problem identifying the suits. The other thing with the sigils is on the numbered cards, the dots denote the number if you need to count, but also there's, 4 wands in this, and the imagery itself has 4 of wands vibes. So, and then this is what, 8? Yeah, 8 of, 1, 2, 8 of cups. So I can identify pretty much the cards. This one, maybe the world. This one I'm forgetting. The majors, I need to spend a little more time with this deck to really sink into it all. The most difficult part for me, and I've heard other people say the same, is the court cards and identifying them. But there are hints and nods, especially if you lean into the way she views court cards, having looked at the big book, which sometimes is a little bit different than how I view them. Like, I think the kings she has as their base element being fire. For me, it's air. For me, kings are air, and then you have, like, King of Cups is the air of water, kind of a thing. For her, it's fire. I put knights as fire. For me, that just made more sense and was the first way I learned it. So I'm going to try her way when I get to know this deck. But I might end up recalculating back to what I normally view the cards as, but I want to give it a go. But what I was saying, and may have totally not wound up saying because ADD, is that in the court cards you have different symbols to let you know what's going on. You have constellations usually marked in the mask. You have, for example, Saturn here, and I think that's the Capricorn zodiac symbol. So aside from, easy enough to see that this is in the Pentacle suit, you have these correspondences and things to sink into and recognize what a card is. Like, this is High Priestess. This is 10 of coins, yeah. The 3. And then these are called branches. This is the 5. So it has that energy. I don't know how well they're going to show up, but in person, the sigils don't obstruct the artwork. And I feel like on camera, they stand out a little more. So it's kind of interesting because when you end up looking at the image, you get that zoned out, like this kind of zones out when you look at the actual, like, colored art in the back. But see, in this, we have the fire symbol, we have the constellation. In the sigil, a lot of times there will be hints and nods to which card it is. But if I were to guess right now, I don't want to guess off the top of my head which one this is, other than I know it's in the fire suit. But one thing I did when I first got it that I'm going to have to do again, like, I think this is the devil, yeah, and this is strength. But one thing I'm going to do is pull out all the court cards, lay them all out, and look at them to get familiar with who's who. Also, I think there's the other difference of the fact that there isn't a page, it's a gesture. So those cards come up somewhere in the very back of the deck because I'm looking for them. No. Like this, I think, takes the place of the page. And this is cups. So, because you've got a cup back here, but then you've also got the color blue and droplets in the plumage here. So there's symbolism in there to read into and to orient yourself as to who you're looking at, what energy you're looking at. But yeah, it's a stunning deck. It is large. I can shuffle it. It is a little difficult. But I really want to work with it more, and I want to also get comfortable enough with it to where I can incorporate it and the sigils in spell work and stuff like that, because it's just, how fun is that, Like, it just seems like it'd be real fun. But I can side shuffle it. Of course, I could not regular riffle, but I can hardly regular riffle a deck of poker cards. Anything larger than that, and I don't like to do it that way. I always do things on the side. I am a Cancer. We move side to side. So that is how I shuffle this. The thing that's a little more difficult than I would like, though, is the overhand. Just if I were to be nitpicky, because this, gripping a stack of cards to do this, I can do for a minute, but first of all, I'm more likely to throw and drop cards, which is not personally how I read usually. And then also my hand will cramp sometimes doing this routine. But it is a deck that asks you to slow down in many ways, physically, mentally, emotionally. So that's part of its nature in a sense. So I can vibe with that. Ooh, 5 of Wands, or branches in this deck. And what's beneath that? Oh, you. Who are you? I'd have to look it up. But yeah, so I hope I can kind of do maybe a weekly practice. We'll see. I'm going to leave it on the altar and see how I feel. Maybe I'll do it on the moon cycles, or who knows. It also comes with the Oracle deck, which is 30-something cards. I keep it separate. Even if I could easily identify everything, I probably wouldn't mix Oracle into it personally. But this is a really fun way to have a perfect pair to go with Nameless One. And also the Oracle cards themselves are interesting. They're neat, they're gorgeous. And would also be fun to work with in spell work. I think I've done that with these once or twice. This one definitely. I also have the larger print of this, I think on my altar. Yeah, at the moment. I got a few of her kind of prints, and I want to get more because I love this artwork so much. I have her other deck, Children of Litha, and then I also backed the Kickstarter for her most recent Children of Ostara. And I also follow her on Patreon, and she's working on a black and white deck that I'm so excited for. And since I don't think I mentioned her name, it's Zia or Alexandria Hunt. So you can hopefully click the link that's in the description that I'm going to remember to put there and check that stuff out. But if you want to see kind of the guidebook with the Oracle cards, you can pause on these and read it. Who knows, maybe I will feel the pull to work with it on a daily basis. Kind of wondering, the week of Samhain, that's what's coming to mind. So maybe that will be the time. But I've kind of stopped trying to force it with decks, and I let them come to me in terms of when they're ready and when I feel called to use them. That usually is what will instigate, I've noticed, the right timing to work with it. I know it's weird sometimes to have a deck for, months or something and feel like I haven't really gotten to know it. But then all of a sudden it's the right time and we click in and I'm like, okay, cool, we're doing this now. So I think that will happen with this one. The last deck that I really want to work with and get to know is this deck. And actually, I meant to I meant to bring it up after Tarot of Persephone's Garden, because I kind of think there's something a little Persephone about this one. This is, I may be butchering how to pronounce her name, and I'm so sorry if I am, and someone correct me if they know. The Yasa Tarot, the 7th edition. I have the Stunning Tarot also, which is more RWS based. Oh, these are the backs. And as you can see, it's a fun shape. But this one, even though I think it's more Marseille based, and given that I'm kind of in the midst of Thoth and working with decks that kind of do their own thing, I'm kind of like, man, do I really want to add another kind of system to learn? But I want to work with it. She has on her website a blog post that acts as the guidebook for this, so I think I would just lean into that and not kind of stress myself about getting to know the Marseille system in particular. I'll just let this deck do its thing when I pull from it / read intuitively into it. But it's like, it's odd. It's a liminal deck is how I feel about it. I feel like it's a transition season type of energy for me. And of course the color palette maybe leans it a little more autumn. And this feels very witchy, but it also, I think, would suit spring. It's like a transitional deck. And then something about it just gives me a little bit of a Persephone vibe. I don't know. Maybe I'm off, but that's what I'm getting. I'll have to discover that. But I really want to work with this one. I want to get to know it more. I think, first, I love the feel of it, the cardstock. It's like, it's a matte, but there's something, not rose petal, but still something silky about the matte. I love the artwork and the fact that it's a limited palette, and like even here she's using like 2 tones for the figure and then limited tones in the background. It's like there's something a little raw about it, but at the same time it has a lot of depth to it, like especially the more busy images. Like there's a simplicity and rawness in the art, but there's something that's just got a lot of depth to it. And I want to dive into it. I've pulled from it a few times, but I think I'm going to be more comfortable now leaning intuitively or just kind of glancing at the blog post. Maybe I'll print out what she wrote up there about the cards. The minors in particular, she has just keywords, so it's kind of nice because it leaves it a little more open, but still gives me an idea of the energy she was thinking of with that particular card. So yeah, beautiful, beautiful deck. It also looks really cool in spread format. I'm very excited about that, and I'd love to know anyone who has this or is seeing this and thinking, oh, that would pair so beautifully with XYZ. Let me know, because I'm not sure. I'd have to play around with pairings. I'm not sure what I would pair this with. And I do like incorporating Oracle. So again, this is another one where I could not have any hope of doing a regular riffle shuffle, but side shuffle's great. No problem for me. And I can overhand it. I wonder how it compares to Nameless One in terms of length of the cards, but this feels somehow more comfortable. So it's probably just a little bit shorter. But then when you lay out cards, like, look how cool it ends up looking. Like, I don't know. I love that. I think there is one evening where I just had fun laying out spreads and looking at them. And part of it is the shape and how neat that looks, but just the artwork is gorgeous. I love how it looks in a spread. I don't know. I really want to dive into this one and get to know it, because I feel like it's a familiar stranger type of situation. I don't know what place it's going to take in my practice. I don't know what work we're going to end up doing together, or that I'm going to end up wanting to turn to this deck for, but I really want to find out. And I feel like this time of year, and this year in particular, it will be time to do that. So yeah. That is the Yasa Tarot. I don't think I'm pronouncing it correctly, because I think I remember watching a video of someone saying the correct pronunciation was a certain thing, and it wasn't where my mind goes right away. So someone correct me. I want to say it correctly. You know, the other thing is I opened this deck from the bottom when I got it, and I don't know why I did that, because it's not like this is a fancy seal up top, but that's what I did. And so now it opens from the bottom, and I regret that, because there's been an occasion or two where that was a problem. So I might find it within myself to reseal it and just open it from the top. But anyway, that covers the decks that I want to get to know. Next, I'll dive into the decks I've been working with that fit the autumn vibe, because there's one pair that I would say is not particularly autumn. I kind of want to do a whole deck diary series with that. So I'm going to leave that out because it's not particularly about this. I'm going to move on to my favorite pairing, possibly of all time, that I already showed in my last video, but I need to go on about it because it also just is so perfect for this time of year. So these 3 decks are very special to me. I've been working with them, well, I've been working with Tarot of the Huntress here since I got it a couple months ago now. And I have to do some kind of whole video about that because the most profound readings I've had yet have been with this deck, with these 3 decks, and it's been in combination with the book I'm reading, Women Who Run with the Wolves. And that's the whole thing. I'm gonna have to contemplate how I want to talk about it, but I've been pairing Tarot of the Huntress with the Witch Oracle and then Obsidian, and the 3 of them work together so beautifully. Aesthetically, they're beautiful together, but just the way they read together is just, it's like a whole other level. I don't even know. I'm so into it. I usually am pulling 2 cards from this deck, 1 from this, maybe 2 from this. I'll pop up a spread that I've done. That's usually how I lay things out, and that's a whole thing in and of itself as well. But they just pair beautifully together, they read beautifully together, they synchronize beautifully together. I've had many readings where I'm in a stupor of how in the world it all synchronized so well, particularly, like I said, with that book I'm reading, which has Artemis vibes to it in a way, Women Who Run with the Wolves. That's a great book, by the way. But I'm kind of taking my time digging through it. I was reading it a lot at one point, and it was just like mind-blowing. And then I was working with these cards, which were echoing everything that was going on. And I was like, what is happening? This feels like very surreal. I've never had this happen to such an extent so frequently. And yeah, I've just loved working with these 3. And I think they, as a vibe, are very dark half of the year in a sense. Though I think I'll work with them year round. They're like my MVPs. Like they're not going anywhere. I have a backup of Tarot the Huntress. I'm longing for a backup of Obsidian. This one's mass market, so I'm not as concerned about ever being out of it, at least at the moment. And what's beautiful with the Witch Oracle and Tarot of the Huntress and the themes of a huntress or sovereign type goddess is that this deck and the themes in it pair really beautifully. The book, which of course I don't have on hand at the moment, I think I showed it in the last video, also I think is really neat. There's sometimes where I'm kind of like, okay, yeah, whatever. But for the most part, I think the book is really great for this Oracle deck. And the themes pair and tie in so beautifully with each other. And I also just love using this deck by itself, or sometimes, you know, as the main thing, and then pulling one of these. Obsidian Oracle, first of all, did you catch the backs? Because I love the backs of these. They're just very cool. Black edge. And it's like a glossy black edge. It's not matte. Can you see that? It's very neat. Very on point with the name. But I use it somewhat like a clarifier, but also as like a specific guidance. So it does orient when I'm trying to clarify a tarot card. It does orient like what lean on it we're going with. And then sometimes it also is just giving advice. And the little booklet is small, but I really like it. And usually there's a sentence, a phrase, an idea, the way it lays out, talking about the symbolism of the individual elements on the card, and then going into the oracle message. There's always something in there that adds a layer to the reading, and just usually works so synchronistically beautifully through the whole thing. So yeah, I'd love to get into it more, but I'm gonna have to save that for a different video. These three are going to be a all the time on my altar type of thing, so they're not going anywhere. But I think I'll really enjoy working with them throughout the dark half of the year. So yeah, that is Tarot of the Huntress. I do believe this one's sold out at the moment, and I don't know if she anticipates printing more again. But if you already have it and are looking for oracle decks that pair really well with it, these are my vote. They're like all a bonded triptych, except Obsidian does have other decks that I use it with, because it's great as an oracle deck to pair with other things, which we'll get into next, actually. So my newest deck that I've also connected with and been working with is Hush Tarot. I avoided it for a little while because I knew it was one of those study decks, but I love me a study deck. What can I say? I like how a study deck opens up my mind, and decks that do its own thing bring me to different lenses of the different cards and archetypes. This is a gorgeous, pretty quintessential autumnal dark half of the year deck, and I have really loved working with it. I did a little video that maybe I'll post at some point after this of me kind of going through and getting to know it a bit, not so much a flip through as it was a get to know ya kind of video, looking at cards, looking at the guidebook, and I do really like the guidebook as well. But I then wound up doing my kind of interview spread, and that was super profound. I'm still not sure if I'm going to make a video about it. These two cards came up in it, because the actual spread positions are just sort of your interview kind of spread positions, but it wound up going to a deeper place as the following several hours and days unfolded, and that was really interesting, and the kind of thing that has bonded me to it, where I'm just like, okay, you and I are working together for a while, aren't we? So yeah, I've been keeping this one out and pulling from it. I'm gonna do more in-depth journaling with it and work with it on a regular basis. But I'm bouncing between this one, the other set of 3 decks that I just showed, and what I think is the last pairing that I've also been working with. The card that I got, though, I just want to mention, just because, oh, how funny. How did you end up like that? If I could find it. Of course, it's the last card, is the Moon card. This was the card I got for the deck to describe itself, and for several reasons. That was very interesting and synchronistic with the timeline of events. But as a basic describe yourself kind of a card is pretty neat and accurate, in the sense that reading with this deck, I have found so far, is much like navigating at night by the light of the full moon, which it is tonight in Aries. I very much found that to be the case reading the cards so far, that it's sort of a not everything that meets the eye. You have to look and discern with more than just your regular senses a little bit. You have to use your intuition and trust yourself looking at the cards. It brings messages, it brings out things that are in the shadows, but it also asks of you that you be willing to navigate into the shadows of cards. I don't mean the shadow aspect of cards, but to navigate them with that same kind of energy that you'd be navigating through a dark night by moonlight. It has that feel to it, and that's been very cool. At the same time, it was in that spread that I did, that introductory type spread, it was also very clear, but it's just that at first glance I didn't see it, and then I wound up leaving that spread out for several days, and it just kept unfolding, and I was like, what the heck? Like, what in the world is going on? Very fascinating. It's been very accurate also from a divinatory standpoint, because I've used it a few times in that way. And I will have to do potentially a whole video on that. We'll see. I don't know, because I have to figure out, it got pretty personal for a spread that was just like a, hey, let's get to know you kind of spread. So I'll have to see how I want to work that out. But I love this deck for this time of the year. I'm so glad I got it, and then wound up immediately having a insane experience with it. But what I wanted to say is that this deck reminds me of damp, dry autumn leaves. Like, does that color palette not give you that energy, that feeling of like autumn leaves in the rain kind of a thing? I love that. So it's very much autumn feeling, and very much a deck that I really love, and I'm looking forward to get to know deeper, because it is the kind of deck that you would probably need to spend quite a bit of time with and feel out. I know some people have reordered theirs. I don't think I'll do that. There's like the High Priestess and the Empress are maybe the only cards where I'm like, I kind of see them, I keep assuming the one is the other. I also have this little amethyst that I put on top of it and was like, okay, that's where you belong. So that stays with it. Isn't that the cutest little cluster? I wish the camera would pick it up as it is in real life. Maybe it looks better than I think it does as I'm recording this, but yep, that stays with it. Pretty much all my decks have stones. I didn't have the other ones with Tarot of the Huntress and etc. But they usually do have stones with them. Oh, and the last thing I'll say, when I was mentioning that Obsidian moves around a little bit, I love this deck with Obsidian Oracle. And they've read really beautifully together, synced right up in a way where I was like, okay, these totally work together. And aesthetically, of course, I also really like how they look, which I always enjoy. That always kind of makes it more fun, right? When they pair up in some kind of way. There's quite a lot of bird stuff happening in Hush. And there's quite a few birds in Obsidian, so that's also fun. Sometimes the same bird has shown up. Oops. So that's my go-to pairing with Hush. They just look so nice together and fit the dark half of the year moment that we are in. So yes, Hush Tarot, Obsidian, these decks are out on my altar and are staying there. The last pairing of decks that I've been working with falls into that surreal, eerie kind of category. and that's Remembering the Sweet Fool Tarot and Death Doula Oracle. I got these, maybe, was it September? They're pretty new to my collection, and I knew I wanted them the second I saw them paired up on Shanna D's channel. She posted like a bonded pair video, and I was hooked. I was so hooked. I ran and was fiscally irresponsible and hopped right on it, because there was just something about these paired together that had me feeling a certain kind of way, where I was like, that is so unique. And there's this, just so you can see the backs, and I need to do that. So they arrived. I did my deck interview spread, which was beautiful and intriguing, and I felt really connected right away. And then I did a couple other smaller spreads and was like, oh, I don't know, I don't feel connected, and I don't know how to read with them, because they both fall into that category of abstract photography. Did I show you the backs of these? They're so pretty. They're different, right? Both of them are, but they vibe together so well. After I did the deck interview spread, I wound up kind of creating for myself a little study guide based off of that. A study guide, a workshop, a study path, I don't know what to call it, but I used the cards that came up and played around with GPT, and had it come up with a bunch of prompts and all kinds of stuff based off of how I was interpreting them. And I've been using that. I felt called to come back to this because I put them away, let them hang out for a while. And last night, I pulled from them again, and like, boom, connected. Could read with them, wasn't feeling disconnected. And they synchronized, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, really well together. And I'm super looking forward to cultivating more of my relationship with them, and feeling into how they read and what they are here to teach me at the moment. Tarot of the Sweet Fool is such an interesting deck, and one of the cool things with it is that in the guidebook, each card has a poem or riddle. I'm not sure which it is, because sometimes it feels a bit like a riddle, and I really like that. It's fun. It's not the kind of thing I'd probably use to read for other people because of that, because it's definitely not vague, but it's certainly different, and it feels like a very personal kind of combination and style of reading also. But I've really loved it. And the cool thing with Death Doula and that guidebook, if you're not familiar with it, is it goes into all the card meanings, some of which are a big paragraph and some are just a sentence, some are a few paragraphs. But then with just about every card, it gives you a little scavenger hunt, in a sense, to go to a page to look at rituals, because the whole back of the book is like actually talking about rituals, practices, and meditations. And like the last card I got was Lower World, and there's a Lower World meditation shamanic journey that I still need to properly sit down and have the patience to do, and I think I will give that a go when I go to bed tonight, because I think I read through this twice now. It's not the kind of thing where I feel like I'm going to need to record it in order to do the meditation, because I'm just going to focus on this section and then let it roll and see what comes of it. But it's got all kinds of cool information in there, and for a book that seems really small, it's like it's got a ton going on. Oh, it also has this blank page. I didn't realize that. I guess that's just a separator. But yeah, there's also a little section on the Big Death talking about that. I haven't really dived into that. I also haven't done spreads, but I don't know if I'm ready with Death Doula to like play around with doing a whole spread just with this as an oracle. I don't really do spreads with oracles. They're just kind of like little points in my tarot readings, but maybe I'll give that a go. I really liked journaling with these two though, and I'm looking forward to working with them. And they fit that kind of eerie space, liminal space. The music that I call these guys my Forest Swords combination, because if you're familiar with the music of Forest Swords, you'll probably see where I'm going with that right away. And if you're not, look them up. It's kind of like experimental music. But I did also find another playlist that I will also link. Should you be intrigued or have these, that's a little bit more soft. And last night when I was reading, I just was finding like a Forest Swords shuffle playlist to be occasionally a little bit too much. Then I found this playlist, and that was perfect. It was so perfect with these two decks. Experimental but soft, and a little eerie, but not uncomfortably so. It really helped me get into these decks. So these are my last combination of decks I've been working with. This also somewhat falls into the category of decks I want to really get to know better, but I feel like I've been tapping into this, so I included it in the decks I've already been working with section. So yeah, I'd love to know what your favorite was, or especially with this one, like, does this look intriguing to you, or does it look overwhelming? I think a year ago, I would have felt like this situation would have been like, I don't even want to try to read with that because I wouldn't have been comfortable. But I feel like I'm at the point now where it's a whole new world and it's just kind of opened up to me, and I feel a lot more settled and comfortable with reading decks that are very different, and being comfortable with my intuition was more the big part in that than knowing specifically the card meanings. But that certainly helps. I at least have the base framework to know what strength is and what Six of Cups is. And this as Six of Cups, like, that resonates. It's like you're looking into the past through a peephole. And I don't know. That's just, it's so simple and so cool. Strength, I'm not sure. I have to sit with, but somehow it feels strong. Like, just the feeling it gives me works. So sometimes I don't know exactly why the card feels right to me, but it does. And I'm okay with that. Two of Cups, I think, is pretty, like, you can see why that's Two of Cups. And it almost, I don't know if you'll see it on camera, but it looks like there's two figures here. We have Ace of Hills, Access the Dark, and Moon. I don't know, it just ends up being such a cool pair. Son of Hills, Wisdom, Five of Sticks. And I really enjoy it. Some of the images with Death Doula, I don't know that I get the vibe of the keyword, but most of them I do. Odyssey, like pointing forward and everything bubbling up. I don't know, that works for me. I don't know why, but this for dishonesty also works for me. Couldn't specifically tell you why, but it's like this red pouring of lava down the center of things somehow fits. So yeah, these have ended up being a really cool pair. It's probably one of the most unique. Both of them are some of the most unique. This one I think is all done analog photography and analog effects or techniques to get these effects. This one does have some computer editing, but is photography based. At least from my recollection, that's how this one works. There's also a mini version of this, and I'm just tempted by mini anything, but I'm chilling myself out. But just if you want to know, there is a mini. And minis are cute. Kind of makes me want the mini. But I'm gonna not go there. I also do want to edge this, but well, I'm not sure, because I guess you have the white, maybe edging it I wouldn't like. Because I kind of thought of doing like one of the grays that's kind of like a taupe gray. So I don't know. I'm gonna leave it as is for now. And then Death Doula has its beautiful golden gilding. So those are my autumn decks. That's what I've been up to, what I hope to get up to, and what's rotating around in my collection. I'd love to know your thoughts. What decks speak to you this time of year? If you've done a video, I'd love to check it out. And if you have any questions, let me know. I want to do a video dedicated to the journaling process, so if you have questions about that, let me know. And anything about how I work with the decks, because I might not think to cover something that someone might ask. And I do want to make videos that are helpful and not just talk about the decks, because I have several decks. I'd like to actually make videos that, I don't know, kind of dive into working with them on a personal level and reading with them, I guess, more, because that's been my journey with them. And I really got so much out of other people sharing what they did. Even though I think when it comes to journaling and working with the cards, it's a very personal process of whatever works for you, but it's nice to get ideas from what other people do to try out, or to kind of rotate things and try new things when you feel a little either burnt out or just not in harmony with the flow in your practice. It's fun to have like different ideas to explore how to approach things. I'm going to end it there. I hope you have a lovely day, evening, morning, or whatever, wherever you are. And hopefully we'll catch you in the next one. Thanks for watching.